All right, so are you ready to dive deep into this AI stuff?
Always ready.
It's pretty wild. We're going to be looking at Perplexity. You familiar with Perplexity at all?
I am, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, we're taking a look at Chalene Johnson's YouTube video about it, and honestly, my mind is already a little blown.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. She's calling it the next evolution of research, even surpassing Google in some ways, which is a pretty bold claim.
Right.
You know I love my deep dives, so let's unpack what she's found and see if it lives up to the hype.
Sounds good.
Especially for, someone like you who's already familiar with ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
What are your first impressions?
Well, Shalene's excitement is definitely contagious.
Mm.
And I think it's grounded in how Perplexity operates. Like if you think about all those times you spent going through Google results, clicking link after link.
Oh, tell me about it. Hours of my life wasted.
Right. To try and piece together the information you need. Perplexity kind of flips the script. It doesn't just give you a list of links. It summarizes information for you across the entire internet.
Wait, hold on. So it's like doing the heavy lifting for you, like sifting through all that noise and saying, here's the good stuff.
Exactly. And here's the best part. Perplexity backs it all up with links directly to the sources it used. Imagine being able to just instantly fact-check anything right there in the interface. No more hopping between tabs.
Okay, that's a game changer, especially for, you who needs to be sure their info is rock solid. But hold on, doesn't Google Scholar kind of offer something similar already, focusing on academic sources?
Yeah, you're right. And Perplexity addresses that with its focus feature. So you can narrow your search to academic papers only. It's like turning the entire internet into your own personal research library.
So it's like JSTOR or Google Scholar, but on steroids because it's not limited to a certain database of journals.
Exactly.
Okay, I see where this is going. This is impressive. I can already see how valuable that would be for anyone doing serious research. But, let's get practical. Shalene shared a story about researching Dave and Rachel Hollis. Remember them?
Yeah.
That really highlighted how powerful Perplexity can be. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so she was trying to find information about them on social media, too. As you can imagine, that can be a real-time suck, especially on, Reddit.
Oh, Reddit.
Yeah.
The black hole of information.
Yeah, because discussions can span hundreds of threads and comments.
Oh, yeah, I've been down those rabbit holes. You start reading and you're like, where am I?
Right, and that's where Perplexity is really useful. It has a search function specifically for Reddit, so instead of manually combing through those threads, you ask a question, and Perplexity goes through it all and summarizes it. It even highlights the different opinions that people have.
Oh, that's amazing. Like having a research assistant who's also a Reddit expert so you don't have to spend hours scrolling and clicking.
Yeah, pretty much.
But let's be real. Even with all this cool technology, we don't always know the perfect way to ask a question.
That's true. And that's where Perplexity's Copilot comes in. Think of it as your AI research partner. It takes your question and kind of asks you clarifying questions to make sure it understands what you really want.
So it's not just blindly searching for keywords. It's actually trying to understand you.
Yeah, exactly. It adds this level of personalization that you rarely see. Shalene gives a great example. She was searching for woman over 50 health, right? And instead of just showing a ton of generic results, the Copilot asked, what are you most interested in? And offered options like nutrition or mental health, menopause.
So it's almost like having a conversation with the search engine to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's so cool. Speaking of cool, let's talk about Perplexity Pro and how it uses ChatGPT-4. That was the real mic drop moment in Shalene's video.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. For the price of a standalone ChatGPT-4 subscription, Perplexity Pro gives you access to both.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me I can get Perplexity A&D ChatGPT-4 for the price of one? What's the catch?
No catch, really. It's Perplexity's way of offering insane value.
Yeah.
They're betting on the synergy between these two technologies.
I mean, it's a smart move. If you're already using ChatGPT for some things, why not have a supercharged research tool to go with it?
Right.
So what else do you get with Perplexity Pro? Spill the beans.
Well, for one, unlimited file uploads.
Ooh, that's nice.
Which is huge if you work with a lot of big documents. Imagine being able to upload an entire research paper and have Perplexity analyze it.
Okay, that's pretty powerful. What about this vision feature? Shalene was a little vague on that.
Yeah, she didn't go into much detail. And to be honest, we haven't had a chance to fully explore it yet either.
Okay.
But it seems like it has something to do with visual analysis, maybe uploading images and having Perplexity understand them. It's definitely intriguing.
Oh, definitely. I'm already thinking about the possibilities. But let's not forget, these tools are more than just research tools, right? Shalene mentioned some pretty incredible uses for content creation, and I think that's where things get super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine being able to feed ChatGPT like a podcast transcript or a
Yeah.
long article, even an entire book, and instantly get a summary.
That's like a content creator's dream right there.
Yeah.
Think about all the time you could save. You could repurpose that content for blogs, social media, you name it.
And it can do more than just summarize. Imagine using it to fact-check claims by finding supporting sources, or even generating creative content like outlines for your next blog post,
Mm.
or even scripts for
The
videos.
head spinning. It's like having a brainstorming partner who never runs out of ideas.
Right.
Shalene even mentioned using Daily, that AI image generator, to create those custom images. Remember the gold balloon numbers? It's amazing to think that we have access to this kind of power now. But hold on, we can't just throw information at these tools and expect them to magically create exactly what we need. We need to learn how to use them strategically.
You're absolutely right. You can't just turn them on and expect perfection. With ChatGPT specifically, you can actually give it instructions to tailor the output to your liking. It's like talking to a really smart assistant.
So spill the beans. What kind of instructions are we talking about?
Well, you can tell it what tone to use. Like if you need something formal, you can say, write like a scientific paper. Or if you want something more casual, you can say, write like you're talking to a friend.
Oh, that's a good one. That would be so helpful for adapting content to different audiences. But what if you're doing research and you want to make sure ChatGPT is using the latest info?
Well, Shalene actually had a good tip for that.
Yeah.
You can tell it to only use sources from a specific time frame, like the last 5 years or something. That way you know you're getting the most up-to-date information.
That's gold. Like having a research assistant who's always reading the latest journals. What about formatting? Can you control how ChatGPT structures its responses?
Absolutely. You can ask for bullet points, a numbered list. You could even have it write a whole essay with an intro, body, conclusion, the whole 9 yards. You can even tell it to use specific headings.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is like having a personal content creation team at your fingertips. Welcome back. So after that last part, I'm like equal parts excited and overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. It can
Yeah.
feel like, okay, this is all really cool, but where do I even start?
Exactly. It's like having all the ingredients for an amazing meal, but needing the recipe to actually make it. So let's talk strategy. How do we actually use this stuff?
Well, the cool thing is that these tools are super versatile. They can be used in so many different areas. It all depends on what you need and what your goals are. So I'd say start by thinking about what you're struggling with or maybe what you'd like to improve.
So start with a problem or a goal in mind.
Right. Let's say you're like you, a researcher, and you're tired of digging through those academic databases for papers. Perplexity's focus feature could be a total game changer.
I was just thinking that instead of being limited to a specific database, I could use Perplexity to search the entire internet for academic sources.
Exactly. And don't forget, it's not just about finding the sources, it's also about analyzing the information. Imagine how much time you could save by having Perplexity summarize those long research papers, pulling out the key findings and even giving you quotes you could use.
Okay, now you're talking my language. But what about those times when I need to dive deep into specific online communities, like, I don't know, a niche forum or a subreddit? We all know how hard it can be to navigate those conversations.
That's another area where Perplexity's platform-specific search is super helpful. Remember Shalene's example with Reddit? You could ask Perplexity a question about, well, anything, and it'll analyze all the relevant discussions in that subreddit and summarize everything for you. It'll even show you the different opinions people have.
No way. So I wouldn't have to waste time going through those endless threads.
Exactly. It's like having a research assistant who only focuses on Reddit.
I like the sound of that. But let's switch gears a bit and talk about ChatGPT. We've touched on its ability to summarize content, but are there other practical uses for it? Especially for someone like me who's always creating content.
Oh, definitely. ChatGPT is amazing for content generation. Imagine giving it a podcast transcript, a long article, even a whole book, and then having it create different types of content based on that material.
Whoa, okay, so like what kind of content are we talking about?
Well, you could ask it to create a blog post outline or a bunch of social media posts, even a script for a video. You could even have it generate different versions of the same content, each one tailored to a specific platform.
That sounds incredible. But let's get even more specific. Let's say I'm writing a blog post and I'm completely stuck. How could ChatGPT help me get unstuck?
You could give ChatGPT what you've written so far, even if it's just bullet points or a rough draft, and then ask it to give you ideas for expanding on those points. Or you could even ask it to come up with some catchy headlines or suggest different angles for your topic.
It's like having a brainstorming partner who's always available.
Exactly.
But sometimes you need more than just ideas, right? Sometimes you need actual content. Can ChatGPT help with that too?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine giving ChatGPT a brief outline or a set of bullet points, and then it just writes a whole blog post for you, complete with an intro, body paragraphs, conclusion, the works. You can even tell it what kind of tone or style you want to match your brand voice.
That is wild. But how can I be sure the content is accurate, factually correct?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember that while ChatGPT is powerful, it's still a machine learning model. And like any tool, it has its limitations. It can make mistakes. It can even be biased sometimes.
So we can't just take everything it says as gospel.
All right, we still need to use our own judgment and do some fact checking like we would with any other source. And here's a little tip. You can actually use ChatGPT itself to help you fact check.
Wait, what? How does that work?
It's pretty cool. You can feed it a claim or a statement and ask it to provide evidence to back it up or to tell you if there's anything wrong with the information.
Wow, that's super helpful.
Oh, you can go.
But let's be real, sometimes we need more than just facts. We need inspiration too. Can ChatGPT help with that?
Definitely. One of the coolest things about ChatGPT is its ability to generate creative ideas. You can ask it to write a poem, a song, a story, even a screenplay. You can give it some guidelines or prompts and see what it comes up with.
That is so cool. It's like having a personal muse on demand. One thing that often holds me back creatively is that I'm not very good at visual stuff. Like, I'm a terrible artist. Is there any way ChatGPT could help me with that?
This is where things get really interesting. Remember, Shalene mentioned using DALL-E, that image generator that works with ChatGPT, to create custom images. That opens up a whole world of possibilities for people who aren't artists themselves.
Are you serious? You're telling me I could use ChatGPT to create images even though I can't draw?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just describe what you want the image to look like, what style you're going for, and even give it some reference images. It's like having a personal illustrator.
That's amazing. But this all sounds a bit too good to be true. There have to be some limitations, right? What are some things ChatGPT can't do or things we need to watch out for?
Well, it's important to remember that ChatGPT is still under development. It's constantly learning. That means it can still make mistakes, and sometimes it can be biased, like we talked about.
So it's not perfect. We need to be aware of that. What are some other things to keep in mind?
Well, ChatGPT is only as good as the information it's been trained on. So if you give it biased or inaccurate information, that's going to affect what it produces.
Makes sense. So garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Be mindful of your sources and be critical of what ChatGPT generates. My biggest tip would be just experiment. The more you play around with different prompts, the more you'll learn how to use it effectively. And don't be afraid to get specific with your instructions. The more detail you give it, the better the results.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling inspired to start experimenting. But before we get too carried away, let's zoom out a bit. What are the bigger implications of all this, for society as a whole?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And one that's hard to answer completely. But one thing's for sure, AI is changing the world fast. And that change is going to keep happening in ways we can't even predict yet.
It's kind of exciting, but also a little scary, right?
Yeah, it's uncharted territory. But one thing I'm sure of is that these tools have the potential to empower people in ways we've never seen before. They can give us access to information and creative tools like never before.
That's a good point. It's an interesting time to be alive, that's for sure. Well, before we get too philosophical, let's bring it back down to earth and talk about some practical tips for using these tools in our everyday lives. We'll be diving into that in the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so brains fully engaged here. We've talked about all the cool stuff Perplexity and ChatGPT can do. Now let's get down to brass tacks, How do we actually use these tools in real life? Like, what are the tips and tricks?
Right. We want to make sure everyone walks away knowing not just what these tools are, but how to use them,
Exactly. So let's start with the basics. Let's say someone's never used Perplexity before. What's the first thing they should do?
Just start asking questions. I think that's the best thing about Perplexity. It's so easy to use. You don't need to be a tech whiz or anything. Just type in your question and hit enter.
Really? That's it?
Yeah, it's kind of like using Google, but way more powerful. Remember, Perplexity doesn't just give you links. It actually summarizes information from all over the internet.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the basic search down. But what if I need to be more specific with my research? We talked about the focus feature for academic papers. Are there other ways to, I don't know, like narrow things down?
Oh, for sure. Perplexity has all these filters you can use. You can choose what time period you want, what kind of sources you want to see, like news articles or blog posts, even the language.
That's super helpful, especially when you're researching a topic that's been talked about for a long time. But what about those times when I need to research something very specific? Like something you'd only find in a particular online community?
Yeah, I get it. And that's when those platform-specific searches are really clutch.
Hmm.
Instead of having to dig through all those threads and comments yourself, you can have Perplexity do it for you.
So it's like having a personal tour guide for those online communities,
Yeah,
taking you straight to the good stuff.
exactly.
Okay, let's move on to ChatGPT now. We've covered a lot of its features, but any specific tips or tricks for using it to create content?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that ChatGPT is a tool, not a magic solution. You can't just give it any old prompt and expect amazing results. You have to be deliberate about what you ask it to do.
So treat it like a partner, not just a robot.
Yeah, like a writing partner. One thing that really helps is to give it examples of what you want. If you want a blog post in a certain style, show it some blog posts you like as examples.
So basically show it what good looks like.
Right. And if you're working on something longer, like an article, you can use this memory feature to keep things consistent. You can feed it the previous section so it knows what you've already written and can match the style and tone.
Oh, that's smart. So it's like giving it a running start, reminding it of what's already been said.
Exactly. And if you're working on something creative, like a story, you can use ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas. Just give it a starting point and see what it comes up with. It can be really surprising.
Like a brainstorming buddy who never gets tired. I love that. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the fear that AI will take our jobs. Do you think tools like ChatGPT could actually replace human writers?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's true that AI can generate some pretty impressive stuff,
Well,
but it's still just a tool. It can't replace human creativity and all the things that make our writing unique.
so it's not about AI versus humans,
Right. It's more like AI and humans working together.
like a team effort.
Exactly. AI can take care of the boring stuff, the repetitive tasks, and free us up to focus on the more creative, interesting aspects of writing.
And that lets us use our unique human skills. But we can't forget about the ethical stuff we talked about, right? The more powerful these tools become, the more important it is to use them responsibly.
100%. We need to be aware of the potential downsides, the
Mhm.
biases, and make sure we're using them in a way that benefits everyone.
It's up to all of us, the people who make these tools and the people who use them, to make sure that happens. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our deep dive into the world of AI. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
And we've only just scratched the surface. It's exciting to think about what the future holds and how these tools will continue to evolve. But for now, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about and a lot to experiment with. Thanks for joining us, and happy AI exploring.